So, I was cruising through the national park, about to head back to base, when out of nowhere this tiny lion cub just shoots out onto the road right in front of me. I'm telling you, I was so caught off guard. I slammed those brakes so hard the Jeep literally skidded sideways across the red dust. Stopped just a few feet from this little guy. And here's the crazy part. The cub just stood there in the middle of the road, meowing like his life depended on it, staring straight into my eyes. And I could see it in his face. Something was seriously wrong. So I got out and tried to shoo him away with my arms, right? But this little dude jumped right up to my feet, stood on his hind legs, put his tiny paws on my knees, and just howled so desperately. Man, my heart just sank. He looked at me with these huge amber eyes, then turned real quick and ran into the tall grass. But he kept looking back, making sure I was following him. I grabbed my backpack with water and rope and just started following this cub through the acacia bush under the blazing sun. We hiked for like 2 minutes until he stopped near this big spreading tree and ran to this dip in the ground. Looking down and howling like crazy, I walked closer and I just froze. It was a poacher's pit trap, deeper than I am tall, steep dirt walls, and at the bottom was a lioness. She was barely moving, guys, only her sides going up and down a little from this heavy, exhausted breathing. She tried to lift her head and let out this weak growl, but her eyes were all clouded from dehydration. Tongue was dry, fur covered in dust. She'd clearly been down there for days. The cub was absolutely freaking out around the edge, meowing to his mom who couldn't reach him. I grabbed my radio real quick. Base, this is Kofi. Emergency. Adult lioness in a poacher's pit. Critically dehydrated. I need a rescue team with a winch and a vet. Sending coordinates now. Dispatcher Mar came back 5 seconds later. Roger that, Kofi. Sending Kwesi and the team. They'll be there in about 30 to 40 minutes. So I tied the rope around this acacia tree trunk, checked the knot twice, and started going down into the pit, pushing my feet against the dirt walls. Few seconds later, I'm standing at the bottom next to this lioness. She's following me with this foggy stare, trying to growl, but the sound was so weak. I slowly got down a couple steps from her face, pulled out my water bottle, and started crawling closer. Calm down, girl. I'm here to help. And right then, I see movement in the corner of the pit. This gray-brown scaly thing slowly crawling between the rocks toward the lioness. A snake, a sand viper. One of the most venomous snakes in Africa, guys. Just slowly getting closer and closer to this exhausted lioness. The lioness didn't even notice. She was too weak, too focused on me. I grabbed my hunting knife real quick and started carefully moving to the left, going around the lioness, coming at the snake from where it couldn't see me. The snake was already at her hind legs, that forked tongue flicking in and out. I just lunged forward and slashed with everything I had, right behind its head, pinning that twisting body to the ground. The viper convulsed, jaws opened wide, those venomous fangs showing, but I hit it again and finally chopped the head clean off. I tossed the dead snake into the corner and turned back to the lioness. She was just watching me with this surprised look. Now I could give her some water and keep her going until help showed up. I unscrewed the bottle cap, crawled closer, and started pouring this thin stream of water right onto her tongue and into her mouth. She felt that moisture and just started lapping up every single drop. Her eyes cleared up a bit with relief. I gave her small sips, real slow. She drank almost my whole bottle and finally turned her head away. I checked her paws. There were scrapes on the pads from trying to escape, but nothing too bad. She closed her eyes and purred softly. I stroked her head. Hold on, girl. Help's on the way. Right then, I heard this sound from above that made me freeze in absolute horror. The high-pitched roar of the cub, filled with fear. I jerked my head up to the edge. The cub was roaring with all his might in that squeaky voice, clearly trying to scare something off. Then I heard it. That terrible laugh. I knew exactly what it was. Hyenas. The pack had caught the scent of this dying lioness. And all that stood between them and her was this tiny, defenseless cub. I grabbed that rope and started climbing as fast as I possibly could. My palms were burning from the rope, but I didn't care. Finally, my fingers grabbed the edge. I pulled myself up, rolled out onto the grass, and jumped to my feet. 6 hyenas in a tight circle around the pit. Those yellow eyes just sizing everything up. And between them and the pit, that tiny lion cub, paws spread, fur standing straight up, making the most ferocious roar he could manage. It sounded ridiculous, honestly, like a kitten squealing. But this little guy didn't back down even an inch. The alpha male, with this torn ear, took a few steps forward, and the cub? He just rushed forward. Straight up attacked. This tiny thing against a predator 10 times his size. The hyena jumped back, surprised, showing those fangs. The others started spreading out, surrounding the cub. I bolted to my Jeep. Got there in like 30 seconds. Grabbed my flare gun and shotgun, loaded the flare gun, and ran back. The hyenas were almost closing the circle. I fired over their heads. That flare exploded in bright red with this deafening bang. The pack flinched. Alpha male jumped back, but they didn't go far. Just stopped about 30 paces away, howling at each other. The cub ran up and pressed against my leg, still growling at them like a total boss. I reloaded, holding the shotgun ready, watching these predators start closing in again. They split up. 3 on the right, 3 on the left. Classic attack from different angles. The 2 on the right faked us out. I turned and fired my rifle in the air above their heads. Both jumped back, but the group on the left crept closer to the pit. I spun around and fired a second flare right under their paws. Red light explosion. Huge roar. They jumped back, but I could tell they were figuring it out. Just light and sound. Not a real threat. Then the cub suddenly let out this piercing cry and lunged at the alpha male who'd gotten up to the edge of the pit. Just grabbed onto the hyena's face and scratched with those tiny claws for all he was worth. The hyena pulled back and opened its jaws, about to break this reckless little guy's back. I fired into the ground right below its paws. The bullet sent dirt, dust, and rocks flying straight into the hyena's face. It yelped and jumped back, shaking its head like crazy, trying to get the dirt out of its eyes and nose. The cub bounced back to me, all ruffled up and shaking. I scooped him up and held him against my chest. I could feel his little heart just pounding. And I'm thinking I've got 1 flare and 1 bullet left, against 6 hungry hyenas. They started closing in again. That terrifying laugh-howl thing they do. The alpha male crouched down, getting ready for the final attack. Those yellow eyes just ice cold. I raised my rifle, aiming right at him. If he jumped, I was going to have to shoot for real. And that's when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. The roar of powerful engines coming fast. 2 pickup trucks came flying out from behind the bushes, kicking up massive clouds of red dust. The rescue team had finally made it. The trucks raced straight at us, just laying on the horns. The hyenas finally backed down. Alpha male barked something, and they all turned and took off into the bushes. I lowered my gun. And guys, all that fear and tension from the last few minutes just poured out. My knees were shaking. My arms felt like jelly. This shiver of relief just ran down my whole spine. The truck stopped. 4 people jumped out. Kwesi and Abina from Vet Services with all the equipment. Plus Quaim and Ajoa from Rescue with the winch and stretcher. Kwesi ran up. "Kofi, you okay?" I nodded and pointed to the pit. These guys moved so fast. Kwesi checked the lioness from above. Abina got the tranquilizer ready. Quaim and Ajoa set up the tripod and winch. The cub ran to the edge, looking down and meowing to his mom. Abina loaded a dart, aimed at the lioness's thigh. Shot it. Dart hit the muscle. Kwesi started timing. 3 minutes till it kicks in. Quaim and Ajoa lowered the net stretcher and rope ladder into the pit. Kwesi checked her pulse. She's out. Ready to go. Quaim went down first. I followed right behind him. Together we slid the net under this sleeping lioness, rolling her side to side to get the slings in place. 3 minutes of serious work. But finally, all the corners were locked in with carabiners. I gave the signal. Ready. Lift. Ajoa started the winch. Motor hummed. Rope tightened. The stretcher started rising real slow. We held it from below so it wouldn't swing. Took 3 minutes, but the lioness made it to the surface safe, where Kwesi and Abina were waiting with everything ready. We climbed up quick and helped move her to blankets in the back of the pickup. Kwesi put in a catheter, hooked up in 4. Abina put on cooling compresses. The cub didn't move from the back, standing on his hind legs trying to see his mom. Kwesi finished checking her over. "She make it, Kofi. You found her just in time." Abina nodded. "Dehydration and exhaustion. Cuts on her paws. But she should be good in like a month and a half." Ajoa asked, "You coming with us?" I looked at the cub. "Yeah, I'll watch the little guy." I climbed into the cab and lifted him onto my lap. He curled right up, nose pressed to my chest, just purring from exhaustion. Quaim took the wheel. We headed to the rehab center about an hour away. The cub just lay there quiet while I stroked his fur. Hour later, we got to the center. They moved the lioness to a ward with IVS. Dr. Essie did a full exam. The cub got put in the room next door where he could see his mom through the glass. At first he was freaking out, scratching at the glass. But he gradually calmed down when he realized she was right there. Fell asleep curled up on a warm blanket. I visited them every single week. The lioness was getting stronger every day. The cub was growing like crazy, turning into this strong little guy who was clearly going to be a serious predator one day. 2 months later, Dr. Essie told us they were ready for release into the protected area. Early morning, we got to the release site. This beautiful open patch of golden grass at the foot of some hills. Spreading trees everywhere. A stream for water. I opened the cage myself. Pulled the bolt. Door swung open. Bright morning light just flooded in. The lioness came out first. Stepped onto that soft grass and just paused. You could tell she was enjoying feeling the ground under her paws after 2 months locked up. She stretched her whole body, arched her back, and let out this soft roar. Pure joy at being free again. The cub followed, way bigger and stronger now. He immediately started running in circles across the grass, chasing butterflies. Just total joy. The lioness turned to look at me, her eyes filled with gratitude. You could see she remembered everything. Those rough days in the pit. The fight with the hyenas. She walked up to me, lowered her head, and lightly pressed her forehead to my chest. It's this ancient gesture of respect in the world of big cats, guys. I stroked her mane. Felt that rough fur under my fingers. Live long and take care of your boy. The cub ran up to me, standing on his hind legs. The exact same move he'd used to stop my car 2 months ago. I crouched down and scratched him behind the ears one last time. "You're the bravest cub I've ever seen." He licked my hand with that rough tongue and ran after his mom, who'd already started heading toward the hills. I just stood there watching them go. First across the open grass under the bright sun, then between the acacia trees, gradually fading into the golden haze of the savannah. The cub looked back over his shoulder a few times, checking if I could still see them. And then they both disappeared over the hill, back to being part of the wilderness they'd almost lost forever. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe. Got more incredible stories from the wild coming your way. Thanks for watching, guys.